We have overwhelming evidence that Jehovah directs his people's building work. So we can be confident the good hand of Jehovah will continue upon us as we build for an eternal future.
Every year, Jehovah's Witnesses have an annual meeting. It's a big event. It's sort of like one of those E3 video game conferences where exciting new things are announced. But instead of video games, it's like new doctrines, new things for witnesses to believe. But they also announce some new DLC, new updates to the governing body. 2 new guys are dropping.
With that in mind, it is a pleasure to announce that 2 additional brothers have been appointed to serve as members of the governing body. Brothers Jody Jedele and Jacob Rumpf.
If you don't know, the governing body are the leaders of Jehovah's Witnesses. They're like a board of directors, but the thing they're directing is the entire religion, and its religious doctrines, its interpretations of scripture, and its policies. So they announced these 2 guys at the annual meeting, but we didn't really know anything about them. This week, Jehovah's Witnesses dropped a governing body update on their website, jw.org. And in this update, Garrett Loesch, the oldest serving governing body member and an old catcher's mitt in a suit, has a little sit-down chat with Jody and Jacob. A little get-to-know-ya.
Brother Jody Jedele is about 6 months pregnant, and Jacob Rumpf was first arrested in January 2005 for murder.
And I thought that I was going to make a rebuttal to that, but as it turns out, only one of these guys is interesting, Jody Jedele. As we'll go on to talk about, he's got a background in real estate. I had never really taken a look at the real estate shenanigans the group has been up to lately, and the closer I looked, the more infuriated I became. That's a little content warning. Prepare yourself for righteous indignation. So let's get into this. It's another power-packed day.
So once again, another power-packed day.
Now, a common criticism, even among members when I was in the group, was that the governing body is incredibly white and American. And okay, Garrett Loesch is an American, but actually I don't know what he is. But in the whole history of the organization, there's only ever been one non-white governing body member, and that's Sam Hurd, or as he sometimes prefers to be called, Sammy.
Mommy, when I get out, call me Sammy.
The governing body has really been pushing an international image, and it makes sense. It's an incredibly diverse religion. There's 8.5 million members scattered all over the world. And while there's a slow decline in membership in the group overall, the increase that is happening in non-European countries, let's say. So, as a Jehovah's Witness, it would occasionally come up that, hey, so much of this growth is happening in Africa. Why don't we have a governing body member who's from Africa? Why don't we have an Asian governing body member? There's millions of Asian Jehovah's Witnesses, but nope, Jacob Rumpf and Jody Jedele. 2 interestingly named white guys. Now, I'm white, so I'm allowed to say this, but all these new white guys kind of look the same to me. That's why I'm just doing voiceover this video instead of showing my face. I don't want people to get confused. Now, I don't want to get too caught up on this point because Jehovah's Witnesses would reason that it's the truth. The religion has the truth. It is the truth. The race or ethnicity of the governing body members, that shouldn't matter. What matters is that they're spiritually qualified. And I would almost agree, but it seems like the governing body is quite self-conscious of the fact that it's often mistaken for an American sect. They've got an article about it on their website. They just released a talk about this subject.
Maybe you've heard others say that Jehovah's Witnesses are a breakaway Christian sect or that we're a new American religion. Now, some feel that because our world headquarters is in the United States, that Jehovah's Witnesses are an American religion. The fact that Jehovah chose the United States as the location for world headquarters doesn't mean that Jehovah's Witnesses are an American religion. And secondly, Jehovah's Witnesses are not an American religion.
And then shortly after they dropped this talk, it's like, but also here's 2 new white guys from America. We at Alt-Worldly, of course, understand that race is a social construct invented by racists to justify racism, and so race doesn't matter. But diversity is good, especially in leadership, but diversity of background and culture, experience, childhoods, perspective, worldview. These 10 or 11 or 12 guys, or however many guys there are now, they have to make decisions for people who are increasingly not localized entirely in majority white countries. They are also literally isolated from the real world. They live in a beautiful lakeside compound that all of their subordinates built for them with their donations. They're just not necessarily grounded in reality, these folks. Everyone has their struggles, of course, but their struggles are like, what are we gonna put on the cover of the magazine this month? Should oral sex be a disfellowshipping thing or no? Whereas a lot of people have to worry about, dying of starvation, homelessness. So it might be good to have people who come from a diverse economic background. What about a governing body member who has experienced homelessness and hunger, poor health conditions, poverty and strife? Jehovah's Witnesses are supposed to keep their lives humble, foreshadowing. So it would be good to have people from a humble background, perhaps. But no.
Because in the end, we recognize that the client's going to be making an important decision, a large financial decision. And our goal is to make sure that the client makes an informed decision that will help them reach their goals and needs. And of course, if we can help you here at Touchstone International Properties, please read us on the web at TIPCRE and ask for Jody Jedele.
Wait, what? You go to the website and ask for Jody Jedele? What kind of website is this? Wait, let's actually find out. So the kind of website it is defunct. Doesn't exist anymore. All right, so this is Jody Jedele, and very shortly after he was announced as being a governing body member, people Googled his name and immediately found that he used to work for this thing called Touchstone International Properties.
The CCIM PIN or designation is recognized in the real estate industry, both locally in the United States as well as internationally, as being a premier real estate designation. The CCIM stands for Certified Commercial Investment Member. And in order to obtain this designation, one has to complete both a rigorous educational component as well as real-life experience, a portfolio of qualifying experience.
So he was a managing partner at an investment firm. Now, a quick Google search, and, Google's not so great these days, so grain of salt. It says that the average income of a CCIM is $91,000. That's in 2024 dollars. If it's not clear from the recording, I'm literally just Googling this stuff on the internet. But then this website, PayScale, says that a certified commercial investment member makes $123,000 a year, average. But then this next one on ZipRecruiter says the average hourly pay is $21.95 an hour. So that doesn't quite add up. Glassdoor says it's $91,000. So let me tell you something real quick. If you're looking for a CCIM job, definitely go to Glassdoor, not ZipRecruiter. They're trying to shortchange you. CCIM is a good income in the United States, but it's not absurd money. It's not obscene money. It's a lot more than your average Jehovah's Witness makes, though. He's a CCIM. That's a certification you get to do whatever it is he does in real estate. I was digging around, and it doesn't seem like it actually takes a great deal of time. Jehovah's Witnesses discourage higher education. Link in the description for a recent video I made on that subject. But from what it looks like, you don't actually need to go to college or anything to get a CCIM. It's a pretty flexible thing. You can do a lot of online learning. It's pretty compatible with the JW ministry schedule and all that. This is the kind of thing you could probably pioneer and also do if you're living at home with your parents, like a lot of Jehovah's Witnesses do.
In order to obtain this designation, one has to complete both a rigorous educational component.
Now, in this nice little interview that Garrett Loesch does with Jody, he talks all about his spiritual career, but he does not mention Touchstone International Properties or any of his other real estate investment things he's done in the past. And I get it. Why would he want to focus on the secular thing? But, it seems kind of like that might be a part of the reason why the governing body is interested in him. From the Irish Independent in August of this year, 2024, former top UBS executive joins Jehovah's Witnesses' new Ireland-based asset venture. Slate of industry heavy hitters sign up to management company run by religious group. UBS is the Union Bank of Switzerland, a multinational investment bank and financial services company. It maintains a presence in all major financial centers as the largest Swiss banking institution and the largest private bank in the world. UBS investment bankers and private bankers are known for their strict bank-client confidentiality and culture of banking secrecy. So that's what the UBS is and does. Reminds me of a very famous Swiss banker, shady Swiss banker guy from a documentary I love called Casino Royale.
My apologies. I do not mean to rush, but 120 million is a large sum of money.
It certainly is.
Okay, that was just a fun joke, but people from UBS, from a secretive top banking company, are joining this Jehovah's Witness asset venture. Wow, why would they do that? Well, the Jehovah's Witness religious group has established a new asset management firm in Ireland that features a slate of heavy-hitting directors, including the former chief risk officer at Swiss banking giant UBS and other seasoned investment bankers. The experienced financial directors are all understood to also have ties to the religious movement. The religious group is thought to have tens of billions of dollars in assets and relies on anonymous donations from its members to support all of its activities. Well, I've been trying to spruce this up, but it's all kind of boring. It just has to do with real estate. You might have heard that phrase, the banality of evil. Well, these guys aren't mustache-twirling villains. They're patchy beard-scratching villains of the banal. I don't like using that word. It's got the word anal hidden in there. The evil they're doing is kind of boring. The normal way that rich people with a lot of resources and cheap/free labor get away with stuff. These guys don't have the nuclear codes. And no matter what Gage Flegal wants you to think, they don't even have a sacred secret.
Greetings. Jehovah has revealed his sacred secret.
But what they do have is a lot of assets. Kingdom halls and other theocratic buildings.
Hard-working brothers and sisters volunteer to be part of local design construction groups worldwide. While working on kingdom halls is the aspect of their work that most are familiar with, volunteers are also needed for working on assembly halls, field residences, and with disaster reconstruction.
Now, I happen to be in a fun Facebook group called Kingdom Halls for Sale around the world, so I'm just gonna put some random images on the screen from that group while I explain some things. If you don't know, Kingdom Halls are the worship places of Jehovah's Witnesses. They don't call them church, they call them kingdom halls. And the nifty thing about a kingdom hall is that you can basically build it for free. Well, not free, you need the materials, but the labor is free because Jehovah's Witnesses build the kingdom halls. And I know basically nothing about money or real estate or anything, but I do know that if you build a building with free labor and then you sell it for more money than it cost to build it, you make a little profit. And I'm not talking about Habakkuk, like $14 million, for example, real quick. Hong Kong religious group sells $14 million in property as home market perks up. The religious group is Jehovah's Witnesses. My dad, who's a guy in the LDC, I've really never seen him shaken in his faith much in my entire life. One time, it came close. I saw him openly question something, was when the LDC revealed this new layout for the way they were going to build kingdom halls. He just couldn't wrap his mind around how ugly this thing looks. Sometimes I wish I could just show him a picture like this, so he could see that it definitely just is a Burger King. I mean, not just a Burger King. This could be any fast food restaurant, it could be any bank, it could be a Spirit Halloween, it could be literally anything other than a church. If you've ever been in a kingdom hall, I mean, it's just a flat ground and chairs that you can pick up and move. They're not pews, they're not like complicated artisanal things. So modest, yes, but also practical.
Not only is that style, but it was practical.
Now here's a kingdom hall that was sold to a Baptist church for $400,000. And that's chump change. I mean, they have properties that they're selling for tens of millions of dollars. Watchtower made upwards of $300 million from the sale of their Brooklyn properties. And you know who got that money?
5 or 6 Witnesses buildings located here in Dumbo sold in 2013. Kushner Companies and RFR purchased the buildings for $240 million as part of a whopping $375 million deal. Now, Kushner, if you're wondering, by the way, is real estate mogul Donald Trump's son-in-law.
This famed Brooklyn property is about to get a makeover. But given the potential conflicts of interest posed by co-owner Jared Kushner, President Trump's powerful son-in-law, prospective tenants might be shy to sign a lease.
Yeah, no joke, Jared Kushner bought the property.
My beautiful Christians, I love you, Christians. I'm a Christian. I love you.
Now, you might think that was a little unnecessary for me to mention, but not according to Jehovah's Witnesses. According to Jehovah's Witnesses, this is God's plan. Watchtower tried to sell their Brooklyn properties in 1918, and it failed, or so it seemed. Jehovah had plans for that building.
Combined with the wartime shortages of supplies, it appeared impossible to continue operations in Brooklyn. The Brooklyn Tabernacle was sold, but efforts to sell 124 Columbia Heights failed. Jehovah had plans for it.
That's just from one of their videos on their website. That's what Jehovah wanted. He wanted that building's money to get to Jared Kushner. Now here's something you might notice about this particular kingdom hall that was sold to the French Baptist Church. It has this very inconvenient watchtower symbol on it, and that's because there was not a standard specific design for kingdom halls back in the day. Whatever local Jehovah's Witnesses had raised the money to build a kingdom hall, they could kind of build it how they wanted, within reason, and they could personalize it. So old kingdom halls, yeah, they're all kind of like flat, modest buildings, But inside, some of them would have beautiful murals that was hand-painted by one of the members of the group. There was this Kingdom Hall that is such a liminal space in my memory. I wish I could dig through my parents' old photo albums and see if I could find a picture of it. But the entire back wall of this Kingdom Hall, as opposed to just being drab, brownish hotel wallpaper, was this incredible mural of paradise. Just top-tier kitsch art. And it was flanked on either side by this lattice woodwork with ivy coming down it. So tacky, so kitsch. But unfortunately, you can't do that anymore. You want to have a standardized, anonymous building that could be converted into any kind of franchise. Now, I don't think that they're doing this for some nefarious reason, mind you. It's just that Watchtower is a business. It was founded to be a publishing company. It is the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society. But the Bible and tract printing industry is not doing so hot these days. Magazines also not doing so hot. So what do now? They draw attention to their website, and they make buildings for cheap and sell them for a big profit.
There is an ongoing need to upgrade most of our assembly sites in Zambia. At many of our sites, the brothers and sisters, they're sitting on the ground, and they're exposed to the elements during the assembly program.
These guys have had to sit on the ground? That's weird. I wonder if any of these guys have ever had to sit on the ground ever in their lives. I get the sense that something like that wouldn't fly in the United States, or at a Bethel facility perhaps. But I'm being a little rude. I mean, they're saying that they're going to fix this problem. Get off the ground, brothers and sisters. The higher your ass, the closer to God.
In the 2023 service year, we completed 10 projects related to assembly sites.
This is the improvement? Just some benches in a tent? This just looks like a state fair. Meanwhile, this is where the governing body has their annual meetings. It's just kind of weird because like all the money flows to the top of the organization. Here you can sort of imagine all these kingdom halls on the lower side, on the bottom, because there's a lot more kingdom halls than there are assembly halls. And then all that money kind of flows up to the branch. And then the money from the branch goes to headquarters. So all the money flows up, 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 and only the people at the top get to decide how the money gets to trickle back down. And so you can just see it makes a nice triangle shape there.
It's not a pyramid scheme. It's not even a scheme per se.
So all the money's there at the top, so they could send it wherever they wanted. Instead of spending billions of dollars on movie studios, maybe they could just give these human beings, like inside building with air conditioning. Jehovah's places of worship are supposed to be dignified, no? They literally dedicate the ground to Jehovah. The building is dedicated to God. Governing body members, a big part of their job, aside from just sitting around this boardroom, is traveling around the world giving talks. And one of the kinds of talks that they give is a dedication talk.
But the spiritual gems that we all enjoyed the most were during the dedication program held at the end of the week. The program was filled with reports and interviews that touched our hearts. And Brother Splain of the governing body gave the dedication talk.
Is it your desire to dedicate the branch facilities, the assembly hall, and the school facility to Jehovah today?
Now, any local elder can give a Kingdom Hall dedication talk. I mean, they build a lot of those. They're at the bottom of the pyramid triangle scheme shape. But to dedicate a really special building, because I guess the building is more spiritual because it's more important, you got to have one of the big boys out there, one of God's close personal friends, an assortment of the identical-looking white guys. One of these guys goes out there, poses with a bunch of impoverished African people, gets a photo op and the attention and adoration of hundreds of people, and then give some pompous talk where they dedicate the building to God. They even have a special song dedicated to dedicating buildings, worship hymns about constructing buildings that later become Burger Kings on purpose because they sell them. That's the whole point. I understand that I'm looking at this from a secular viewpoint, though. As we established earlier, Jehovah chose the United States of America for his headquarters.
The fact that Jehovah chose the United States as the location for world headquarters doesn't mean that Jehovah's Witnesses are an American religion.
These guys have nothing to do with it. It's pure cosmic coincidence and part of God's divine plan that no people who are Asian ever be in the governing body. That's just part of God's plan. That isn't racist. It's just that he never will have anyone from Africa or Mexico in the governing body, or Paraguay. I mean, he already chose the United States, and these guys already have an American citizenship, so it's pretty easy. They just, move them to a different office. Imagine if they had to all become, like, citizens of Paraguay. I mean, if they fled to Guyana or something, they would have to get new citizenship stuff, right? I'm getting a little outside of my wheelhouse of knowledge. I've never really traveled outside of the United States. It just so happens that all the really expensive, beautiful stuff is near the really important white people in New York, so they can make their important movies. I mean, not their movies, they're God's movies. Real quick before I move on, I've mentioned this movie studio a few times. That would be their Ramapo project.
And coming soon, the new media center at Ramapo, New York.
This project has been dragging out for a long time. They've been releasing little construction update videos every year since the initial announcement of the project back in 2019, but they hadn't released one of these videos for 2024 yet. Thankfully, I have dragged out the editing of this video to give them enough time to finally post an update. It's not a fancy video update, but in November 2024, they did receive some kind of approval to go ahead with the project. And I just wanted to bring up Ramapo because if you are not a Jehovah's Witness and haven't seen this channel before, you might be wondering, wait a minute, aren't Jehovah's Witnesses preaching that the end of the world is coming soon? Isn't it a little silly to build a movie studio when Armageddon could potentially come any day? This is of no concern to Jehovah's Witnesses because, of course, they know that these buildings will likely be spared in God's wrath, and maybe, or perhaps, these buildings will even be used to educate resurrected from the dead Bible people in paradise.
The faithful slave now says many of the projects that are being worked on now, like Ramapo and the Good News, according to G's video series, may, or perhaps, will carry over into the new world to assist the great crowd with the work ahead and perhaps including resurrected ones. That's comforting. That's just, you have to let that sink in.
This guy is no longer on the governing body, so I guess I don't actually know if this is canon anymore.
We are producing more videos, all of which feed our hope. That means we need more studio space.
This is how Jehovah feeds his people. You give Jehovah's bank the money, and then Jehovah's bankers distribute the money to where the need is great. And the need is not so great that these people deserve to have air conditioning. It's not that great over there. And they don't actually need that much food either. I mean, they don't need any more food than they get normally. Jesus didn't ever really say anything about stuff like feeding the poor. All Bethelites, including governing body members, take a vow of poverty after all. Governing body, they follow Jesus' command to sell their belongings. Therefore, as we can clearly see, all members of the Bethel family are equally impoverished. Nobody has any more money than any other person who took a vow of poverty. They should all have $0. Am I wrong? Am I not understanding a vow of poverty? It seems to me like they should all be equally poor. Then again, I'm not a channel of truth being used directly by Jesus Christ, or I guess indirectly, because they're not inspired of God, so they can make mistakes, and they don't have to apologize. Well, there's no need to apologize.
Well, knowing this, then we are not embarrassed about adjustments that are made, nor is an apology needed for not getting it exactly right previously. And also, the governing body is neither inspired nor infallible. And so it can err in doctrinal matters or in organizational direction.
The way Jehovah communicates with people is through white men indirectly, and these white guys can make as many mistakes as they want, and they never have to apologize for it. And they get to boss around all the black people who live in tents. Oh god, I hate this. Oh my god. Almost like these guys are racist. Again, it's the banality of evil. Now let's think about this for a second. How many billions of dollars would it take to end homelessness? Now again, I'm not really doing a journalism chat.
I'm doing journalism, chat. Calm down.
No, I'm not doing journalism. I just Googled this for 2 seconds. I mean, don't take this as the gospel. To end homelessness in the United States, it would take $11 to $30 billion per year. Now that's a lot of money unless you have tens of billions of dollars, which they do. So it's just important to think about the fact that they are intentionally, every single day, choosing not to end homelessness, but they are choosing to build a movie studio. Now you might think that that's impractical or unfair, but you know what? This is my YouTube channel. I can say whatever I want on here. Now the point of this tangent is just to say that there are only 8.5 million Jehovah's Witnesses. You could end hunger and homelessness within the Jehovah's Witness religion, sell off a few of these assets, Watchtower. But I don't know. I guess God just has a certain way he wants all this stuff distributed, and it's probably important for his divine purpose, his divine plan of the ages, that certain kingdom halls are just basically circus tents, and other kingdom halls are actual buildings.
Because it was impractical to expand the branch facility in Kinshasa, we looked for property that could care for the immediate and future needs of the branch. We purchased property in the country's second largest city, Lubumbashi, where a developer was already building housing and office units. The developer already had the zoning, permits, and completed design packages. This saved much time and allowed the projects to move ahead with minimal disruption.
Oh, cool. So somebody was going to build housing, but instead Jehovah's Witnesses swept in and built a church. In case you're wondering, no, Jehovah's Witnesses don't use their kingdom halls as shelter houses for the homeless or anything like that.
Currently, in Africa, 13 branch facilities need to be enlarged or renovated.
Notice that they did not say how much housing was needed in Africa.
Over 50 approved remote translation office projects are being developed. And in order to keep up with publisher growth, over 5 major Kingdom Hall projects need to be completed every single day.
There isn't a need for housing or hospitals. There is a need for branch facilities and translation offices, corporate structures where their unpaid laborers can do business for the church.
So after receiving humanitarian assistance through the Coordinators Committee, LDC comes into the picture to make sure that if there is any reconstruction work that needs to be done, it will be accomplished.
When disasters strike, our theocratic facilities and the homes of our brothers are affected.
What a striking contrast. This is how they've edited together. Look at the contrast between that thing they just built for rank and file Jehovah's Witnesses and the world headquarters. The special people who get extra privileges from God, they get a special building that's nicer. The governing body is very important. They have to assess the needs around the world. And the need that they have assessed is that they get a nicer house than everyone else. Seriously, defend this if you're a Jehovah's Witness. Explain how this is fair. Explain how this is godly or based on the Bible or anything. Don't get me wrong, they do think that they have the truth. I mean, they're preaching this stuff. They really think the end's gonna come. Watchtower is a business, yes, but it's a business that's always struggling because they don't actually plan this business ahead very long because they really think the end's coming. I guess what I'm saying is there's a balance here. It seems to me that they brought in these two guys, yes, because of their spiritual qualifications and because, well, they seem like boring company men. And maybe they were really just made in a lab because maybe all the new governing body members are just the sperm mixed together of David Splane and Ted Jarrus, and they're just trying to make like a perfect clone, like the way Palpatine was trying to do. Sometimes you get a real gangly, creepy Snoke-looking one. You know, it's like, is he an alien or is he human? Then sometimes you get a normal-looking one, like Ray's dad. Sometimes I like to annoy people with my in-depth knowledge of sequel trilogy lore. Anyway, back to these creepy cult leaders. Well, I don't know. These guys don't seem so creepy, actually. They seem nice and boring. Actually, they seem definitively less creepy than Kenneth Cook to me.
Hi.
And they seem way less creepy than Gage Flegel. I don't know what it is about Gage Flegel. It's like he's got a secret.
The sacred secret, sacred secret.
Jehovah's Witnesses are not building houses for the homeless. They don't use the kingdom halls as shelters or soup kitchens. They're just places of worship for Jehovah's Witnesses, and that is it. Until, you know, they need some money and then they can just sell it. Jehovah's Witnesses, like basically all religions, rely on a charitable status to operate. The key difference here is that a lot of religions actually do charity. I'm not a religious guy, but I think that's good. They do more charity than I do. Jehovah's Witnesses just think that the charity that they're doing is saving people's lives. It's like Scientology. They wrote people into the movement by saying, we're going to save the world. But how do they do that? Well, by getting people to believe in Scientology, silly. And it's the same way with Jehovah's Witnesses. They think that them building a kingdom hall is, in a way, a charitable thing because by demonstrating to the world, and like basically passers-by, people noticing that there's a kingdom hall being built, by volunteers who aren't accepting a paycheck, why, that gives a witness. It reflects Jehovah's glory. The very act of building is sort of the act of preaching, which is why pioneers are allowed to count their building time on their field service reports, just like it says in the Bible. They do disaster relief, but just for each other. If there's a hurricane in Florida, Jehovah's Witnesses will send Jehovah's Witnesses to help the Jehovah's Witnesses in Florida. I think that's good, by the way. I think it's good to have mutual aid groups. But what's really nice, and what is the point of the Good Samaritan story that Jesus told, was to help people who were not already your fellow believers, and to actually put them ahead of your fellow believers. So I think it's nice what they do, but it literally isn't charity. But Jehovah's Witnesses say that they're a charity because they do disaster relief work, and education. The education is just doing a Bible study with people based in Jehovah's Witness publications. And yes, one of those publications does help people to learn to read. One might argue that it's unethical to teach people reading comprehension out of a cult propaganda book. If you're trying to train someone how to read and how to understand the written language, using a blatantly manipulative text is kind of not cool. Might set people up for failure later in life. So literally, what good and charitable things are Jehovah's Witnesses putting out into the world? Nothing. It's nothing. Jehovah's Witnesses will be like, yeah, but we're nice and we're loving. And yeah, good. You're good citizens. That should be the expectation of all people. Jehovah's Witness money that members are donating just stays entirely within Jehovah's Witnesses. And occasionally, to settlements. It seems a lot like a business to me. It seems a lot like a business, not a charity, because they don't do anything charitable, and they just perpetuate their own existence. Members' donations, those voluntary donations that Garrett Loesch mentions early in the broadcast, one of the things they fund is these guys' house and electricity and water and plane trips and their food and their healthcare and their watches and their nice suits and their court settlements.
The love you have shown us at every step of this trip, from the welcome at the airport to all the different activities, the beautiful gifts, the friends at the convention, the wonderful reception personnel at the hotel, it has been unbelievable. We thank Jehovah for allowing us to have this incredible experience.
Well, I guess I didn't really have anything to do with the two new guys specifically, but it was fun to talk about. And thanks so much to my patrons who got to see an early cut of this, which had an entire 10-minute long segment on Jacob Rumpf, which I cut because it had nothing to do with the real estate thing at all. I'll probably release it as its own separate bonus video at some point, but patrons and YouTube members can see it now. My dream in leaving the Jehovah's Witnesses was to make stuff. So if you want to support me making videos here on this channel and other channels, and also writing a novel and submitting another, and if you want to see some exclusive videos and, I don't know, sometimes just cartoons that I draw, you can do that, or not. And I'll tell you up front, this isn't a charity. It's just to help me be able to live. I did a lot of unpaid labor myself for Watchtower, so it's nice to actually get paid to make YouTube videos. And you gotta watch these videos now because unfortunately, unlike circuit assembly halls and branch translation offices and the nice compound where the governing body lives, these videos will be destroyed in Armageddon, which will be here any day. Just kidding, we're gonna have to ride it out together. We're in it together. It's not gonna end, it's just gonna keep going and we gotta figure it out.
Jody Jedele
nursed a murderous grudge against Jacob because Jacob considered killing him after the death of his father.